All right, guys, the following is a big, long Q&A session that I did as a live stream. I did it in conjunction with that giant giveaway I did. So I gave away an elk hunt and close to, I don't know, $10,000, $15,000 worth of gear. So this is that stream. I cut it out a little bit to make it a little bit quicker for you, but it is pretty long and drawn out. This is a great one to download as a podcast, to just watch, to listen passively via YouTube in your truck on a long drive, because it's long, but it really is rapid fire hunting questions that are across the spectrum. So elk hunting strategy, draw strategy, just logistical questions like how much cooler space do you need to pack an elk? How do you deal with processors in terms of just getting them to hang an animal when you're not going to process it? A bunch of private land stuff. I've got the guys on from Infinite Outdoors to answer some questions along those lines. Really topics across the board. And I have to have answered at least 30 or 40 questions in this thing. So lots of good stuff in there, something for everybody. I'm trying to do live streams like this on the membership group, pwchuntsquad.com, on the free side. So I am doing weekly calls, not necessarily right now while I'm guiding a ton, but most of the year I do weekly calls on the paid side, trying to do at least a big long Q&A with everybody on the free side. Go sign up at pwchuntsquad.com, get on the free tier. You'll know when I'm doing these live streams. You can submit questions. You can send them via message, DM, SpeakPipe, leave me a voicemail. You'll see a lot of those I answer on this. I hope you guys find this one useful. And yes, congrats to Patrick. Sounds like he literally killed an elk right before the stream. So I'm pumped for you, Patrick. I'll go over a couple things, a couple little ground rules on stuff, just so you guys know. Like, it's a lot for me to administer at the same time. So I'll do my best on the chats, but I'm gonna focus on all the questions I got. Everybody, I mean, I think I went through somewhere like between 250, 300 questions, trying to figure out which ones would be most useful to you guys. So I would guess that this will go for, I'm going to try to keep it to less than 2 hours, but I'll do my best to get everybody's questions answered. A lot of them are duplicates, so like big topics, I kind of try to organize it for you guys, so we covered that stuff. But yeah, feel free. You're still welcome to put stuff in the chat if you have questions as I discuss answers, as Sam chimes in also. But if I miss it, I apologize. I'll try to watch for it there. Okay, so a couple administrative things. So for you guys that are on the live stream, and I'm gonna I'll edit this out when I post this up as a Q&A. Hey Red, nice to see you, dude. But I'll take this out of the replay. I just wanted to kind of give everybody that actually got on the stream bonus. So I created a discount code for all the gear on my website, and then it's the same discount code if you want to buy any of the courses on the membership group. And that's under pwchuntsquad.com. There's links all over my website. You can check it out. But this discount code applies to any of the courses, any of the memberships, anything. If for some reason it doesn't work, just let me know, guys. It's the other thing is I have a bunch of podcasts coming out. I'm going to start guiding this weekend. But I've got a bunch of podcasts teed up. And man, that thing is growing. I appreciate all your guys' support on it. If any of you guys do listen and you're willing to jump on Apple or wherever you listen to it, Spotify, and leave me a review, it does help. Like I noticed like a huge uptick in downloads when people go on there and add a couple of reviews. So if you guys could do that, that'd be hugely helpful. If you guys are looking for an update on archery elk conditions, at least from the context that I have from being up in the flat tops I got back 3-4 days ago, but that first like 12 days of the season, on the archery elk front and the bear front, check out my last YouTube video. I also talk about the lampers poaching charges, just a brief opinion on that. I'm not going to talk about that on this live stream at all, even if you ask me questions about it. I think my opinion on it is on there. And but yeah, so check out that last video if you want an update or if you want to hear my thoughts on that. And just so everybody knows that you guys are on here, I know a lot of you guys just want to get on. You want the giveaway to go down. I will get on that here in the first like 5-10 minutes. So just bear with me. Let's see here. Yeah, so I have a little section of my notes that's rules of engagement. Yes, and I appreciate anybody who submitted questions on the SpeakPipe. So the SpeakPipe is speakpipe.com/PWC. I've got you guys that have left audio messages. We're gonna go through a bunch of them here. I might miss a couple guys because I got a couple just right before I got live on here. So, but I'll do my best to answer all of those. I think it's fun. I don't know if it's like a throwback to me listening to like Howard Stern when I was a kid and shouldn't have been or whatever, but I like the audio questions or whatever. So we'll get those on. Let me pull in Sam from Infinite Outdoors. I'll have him do a little intro, and then we'll answer a couple questions. Then we'll do the giveaway. All right, let's see here. You there, Sam?
Yes, sir.
Sam, this is your first live stream, huh?
This is my first live stream, man. Never been a part of one.
It's so funny to me, Sam, because this shit's fun, dude. I don't know, like if you asked me, 5 years ago, if I would be like doing live streams with hunters, I'd be like, no way. To me, that's something that's like something that like gamers do, or this like weird world that I was not a part of. But I think it's fun, man. And we get a lot of good interaction. So anyway, Sam, I would love for you just to give guys a little, your position at Infinite Outdoors and then kind of your background as a hunter and guide, just so kind of people have a little context.
Yeah, absolutely. So with Infinite Outdoors, I'm the COO of Infinite and one of the co-owners of the company. So I've been with Infinite for almost 4 years now, and just kind of head up a lot of the different operational side of things, as far as adventures happening on different properties, bringing on new landowners, kind of head up the sales side of things too. So it's been a pretty fun ride from where we started to where we're at now. But that's my role with Infinite Outdoors. As far as background in the hunting industry and guiding and just as a hunter in general, man, I've been hunting since I was a little kid. I got into it with my dad originally, just like probably a lot of guys got into hunting, is
Sure.
Their dad taught them. And it just kind of stuck, all through high school, college. I was a baseball player, so I traveled a lot, and was out of state, kind of away from home. But once I came back home after I graduated school, hunting was kind of the next step for me. So I started guiding, I think when I was 23 years old. I'm 32 now. Actually, I guided for an outfitter up there in the White River National Forest, not too far from the Flat Tops Wilderness. And we didn't do any hunting up on the Flat Tops, but over the summer we'd do some pack trips and things like that. So pretty familiar with that area. But have guided elk hunts, mule deer, antelope, a lot of waterfowl, upland bird. Kind of dipped my toes into a lot of it. And to me, guiding is a lot more satisfying than pulling the trigger myself. And I've even seen that with my wife, who I got into hunting just a few years ago. And it's so much more fun for me to put her in a position for her to be successful than it is to go out and actually hunt for myself. So that's why I really took to guiding, getting to help people experience these things that otherwise they might not be able to. But yeah, so that passion definitely lies in the outdoors, whether it's hunting, fly fishing, camping. And that's something that I don't think I'll ever change. So yeah, that's just kind of a little background on me.
No, I love it, dude. And so there's actually, I see in the chat there, so Lyman, let me know, guys, if the audio is a problem. I'm getting a decent connection. It sounds like it's good for Lyman now too. But do you see that one question there, Sam? You can answer that for it's Obsidian Outdoors. So I don't know his real name, but can you see that one?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. About the membership and what it gets somebody access to. Absolutely. Love to answer that for you. So yes, Infinite Outdoors is a subscription-based model where you are able to pay the $50, $49.99 annual membership. And what that comes with is all kinds of different perks. first of all, I guess there's two different tiers of membership on Infinite Outdoors. One is access, just access membership, and that'll get you access to any of the access granted properties that we're working with to open up free access to outdoorsmen on any landlocked public land or otherwise hard to access ground. And then the Access Plus membership is the one that's $49.99. And again, it comes with all kinds of different perks. We try to make it as valuable as we possibly can. So if you spent the money on the membership and you never went hunting on an Infinite Outdoors property, you still get something out of it. And so that looks like 3D mapping features on, the mobile app as far as looking at private and public land data, being able to use those mapping tools. It also comes with different discounts to a lot of the outdoor industry partners that we work with, whether it's Alps Outdoors, Element Outdoors, so camo, blinds, duck and goose calls, sunglasses, boots, lacrosse boots, all of these companies that we've partnered with to provide member benefits to you for that $50 membership. And then on top of that, you then have access to book private properties across the 18 or so different states that we're in. Going through the application process, having that Access Plus membership, that is what sets you apart from just the Access-based membership and allows you to be a vetted user that our landowners that we're working with trust to allow out on their property. So lots of different things that come with that membership. Again, the biggest ones are if you never hunt, you get the mobile app, the mapping features, and then the member benefits to all kinds of cool gear. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. And and that's Zach. So I know Zach well. Sorry, Zach. I just your name on your channel or whatever. I didn't see it. But Jason, I turned up my volume a little bit, so hopefully that's better, man. Thanks for the heads up. But yeah, no, that makes sense. Let me see if I can get that off of there. There we go. Dude, so my take on this, I'll be real brief, man, because I've seen a few of these kind of these kind of platforms. I shouldn't say come and go, but I've seen a couple guys attempt, and it seems like you guys are making like a real good attempt at it and got some momentum. It'll be cool, man, to see how it goes. Like just I don't know how you guys frame it, but to me it's like, hey, if kind of a normal guy without like long-term relationships or leases or whatever can get some access to private land hunting, I think it's a good thing. So good stuff, dude. Let's see here. And we can, so do you see, let's answer Lyman's question in a minute. He has a question about the landlocked stuff, but I don't want to get too carried away on those questions just yet, dude, but kind of we'll hold that in the back here, Sam.
Fair enough.
But it's a good question, Lyman, so I don't mean to put you off. Let me pull up. I actually have a few questions on this front, and then we're gonna do like 5 or 6 questions, guys, and then we'll do the giveaway. So this one is this one's from Travis, and this would be a good one for you, Sam. So Travis says, for Colorado elk, can you pay a private land fee to hunt someone's land with permission if you have a public tag? And Sam, do you mind diving in just so people who don't know the different types of tags that like Colorado gives in terms of whole unit, just the land, those sort of things? You mind doing like the overview on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And please feel free to chime in if I skip over anything. But I think what you're talking about is Colorado offers different tags as far as one could be private land only, where you are strictly limited to hunting on private land. It doesn't necessarily have to be if you draw the private land only tag, it doesn't necessarily have to be any one particular private ranch. If you are going through a private landowner and that landowner provides you with a private landowner voucher, then you're pretty much limited to just that landowner's private property. But then there's unit wide tags. So you can draw whatever, an Area 49 first rifle, area unit wide elk tag, and you can hunt public land. If you have permission to hunt on private land, you can hunt that private as well. It doesn't limit you like that private land only tag does. Does that answer the question that we're getting after here?
Yeah. I think that answers I think it was Travis's question. And so so one nuance here, and this is me talking, not you, Sam. And you guys don't deal in tags, right? Or in landowner tags, other than like is that not part of your guys' model?
We work with landowners to kind of understand the application process, and make sure that they know what they're doing. And then if they draw the vouchers, they can contact hunters and kind of square things up that way. We are pretty hands off with the vouchers. We can, like I said, we'll help people apply for tags, or not necessarily help them apply, but make sure that they don't miss the deadline. They know the hunt code they're trying to draw a tag for. And if they don't, and they're still booked on a property and that landowner might have a tag or a voucher available, we'll just kind of make that connection so that we're not involved in the voucher process.
Yeah, I got you. And I know that every state's a little bit different. If Colorado's like it used to be, like you guys pretty much have to be like that, is my understanding, right, Sam? Yeah, like you can't be involved. You can't.
Yeah.
So the thing that's interesting, I guess, to add to Travis's question on this front, because I ran into it a lot. Tell me if I'm wrong, Sam, but it's still the case that if you're buying a unit-wide tag from a landowner, they have to grant you permission to hunt the land that it was issued on. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. But pretty much by providing a hunter with a landowner voucher, that landowner is agreeing to allowing that hunter to hunt any land that is deeded to that name on the voucher for the entirety of the season that tag is good for. So it is basically guaranteeing access with that voucher.
Yeah, I got you. And the only thing I will add, and then we can go to some other questions, is this can get like funky a little bit. I know you guys are really I mean, one of the advantages I think of like a system like your guys' is there's a lot of transparency. There's not a lot of transparency in like the private land tag world, in not just Colorado but New Mexico and everywhere else. Just to add, so Travis knows this, and anybody else wanting to like deal in this world, there's situations that for sure exist where private land owners, they want to sell you a tag, but they really don't want you hunting the ranch that they're on. So that's one of those things that you need to be conscientious of. And I see that, Dana. I'm going to max out my volume, guys, so I apologize if I'm a little low. But I guess my take on that, and Sam add anything, is you need to make sure that's very clear with the landowner that you're buying the tag from, if you do that. So I don't know if you've run into that at all.
Yeah, because a landowner can draw, it depends on how much acreage they own, but maybe they draw multiple vouchers in a year, and they've got some family that are going to redeem 2 of them and hunt the entirety of the season, and they've got this third one that's not being used. Legally, they can't sell a voucher to somebody without providing that access. They can maybe come up with an agreement with the hunter and just say, hey man, here's some really good public ground, or my neighbor's allowing some hunting as well if the voucher applies over there. But yeah, legally they can't do that. But if there's some sort of side agreement that goes on between the hunter and the landowner that says, I'll stay off your property, I just need the tag, then that's something they can work out.
Yeah, the main thing is like, don't ignore it as a thing. Like talk about it up front with whoever you're buying it from. Absolutely. So you're just like happy with whatever you get set up on. But no, that's all good info, man. Let's see here. Let's answer Lyman's, or I'm gonna forget, dude. Let me put it on here. Could you elaborate on the access to landlocked public? Do you coordinate with landowners? Yeah, give the brief answer to that, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we started what we call the Access Granted Initiative, and essentially that is us working to provide access to either landlocked public land. There's so many acres of landlocked public land across the country. A lot of it here out in the West, Wyoming, Colorado, and whatnot. And so we're working with private landowners that butt up or have good access to that landlocked land to provide, basically daily access for free to the outdoorsman. And so what we're doing is we're working with other companies in the outdoor industry, basically to build this access granted fund to where we can compensate the private landowner to allow access through. And for a landowner, it's a lot less intrusive than most agreements, because A, they have the transparency of when somebody's going to be there, B, who they are, what they're driving, how many people are in the group, and they get to set in place lots of different rules and regulations about how to access, where to park, park here and walk the 50 yards into the BLM or National Forest or whatever it is. So our goal is to compensate those landowners for the access, but also provide that free access to public land.
Yeah, I got you. That makes sense. Good stuff. And good question, Lyman. All right, guys, my elk hunting course is up at pursuitwithcliff.com/elk. So many courses are 90% how to call elk. And yes, I touch on that, but I cover so much more that's important. In particular, I try to get you in the mind of an elk, how an elk thinks about staying alive. Once you understand that, once you know how to apply it to the wind, how to apply it to your stocks, you are gonna be way better at killing elk. I even do a whole couple hours on shot placement. From what I've seen over hundreds of elk hunts, exactly where to put that arrow, exactly where to put that bullet. Go check it out, pursuitwithcliff.com/elk. I'll see you guys there. Dude, we're gonna do an audio one. You ready, Sam? I have no idea if this is private land related, infinite outdoor related, or whatever. So this one is from Freddie. Go ahead and listen here.
What is the closest distance that you have taken an elk?
Oh, dude, I love simple questions like this. Go ahead, Sam.
Personally, like 8 yards.
How about with clients?
With clients, probably 15 yards.
Okay.
And that was an archery hunt. But I've had some rifle shots that were even, 20, 25, 30 yards really close. It just depends on the situation, obviously.
Yeah, sure. I have two, man. I think my closest rifle shots are probably in that like around sub 25 yards, 20 yards type of deal. I've shot a few elk that way. It's always the same. It's always one of those situations, or I shouldn't say always, but for me, it's been a couple situations where I felt like we basically missed an opportunity, and then elk got chaotic, and then like one ran up, just like was in the brush 20 feet away. Know what I mean? Those sort of things. So, sometimes even the dumb bird gets the lucky worm or whatever. But dude, archery, I've had a couple that were like, I didn't know, I might be exaggerating, but I think it's pretty close to, I was almost concerned the arrow wasn't going to completely come off the bow. Just like close quarter shit. Yeah. But I will say, and I have to laugh at Freddie's question, I've missed, and I've had people miss from very close. Sometimes it's almost harder.
Yeah.
You know, like really, really close, particularly with a bow. It's almost like, getting drawn, being able, like, you can't move at all, those sort of things,
I was just hunting this last week in Wyoming, and just a cow, but I had a cow at probably 3 steps, and that's all I could think about was like, if you were a bull, how would I draw without getting gored? It adds a level of difficulty to it. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I'd rather be 50 yards with a rifle. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or at least 10 yards with a bow. You know what I mean? Just so you have some maneuverability. So close is not always the best. But I like the question, Freddie. Let's see here. Let's see what other questions I got specifically that would be that you could help me with. Oh, this is a good one, man, because I think it applies to probably a lot of you guys' hunts. So this one is from Gary. He says, will processors store skinned and quartered animals for multiple back-to-back hunts without using their processing? What's your experience on the Front Range, man?
Read the question again, if you don't mind.
Yep. So here, dude. I'm gonna post it up for people. 1 second, so everybody can see it. I think it's a good, like, practical, like, logistical question.
Will processors store skinned and quartered animals for multiple back-to-back hunts without using their processing? So are they just asking if they'll store it in the freezer form or store it in the cooler form?
Yeah, dude. So I think the question is like, I got seasons stacked up where I'm gonna go hunting, and I know Gary who answers, and he's got like a bunch of stacked up hunts, which a lot of guys seem to do, because they're from Texas or wherever, and they're gonna go shoot an antelope, and then they're gonna go up to Wyoming, or they're gonna shoot an antelope in Wyoming, and then maybe they're gonna come back to Colorado to hunt. They're trying to figure out those logistics. Have you, like, and I don't know, I'm assuming, Sam, that you do a lot of stuff on the Front Range. Will they hang meat for you for a fee, or do they all want you to use their processing services?
I'll be honest. I don't know the answer to that because it's not really something I've ever looked into. I know that along the Front Range, the big deal is just space. Because
Yeah.
a lot of these processes are just stacked from like opening day of archery season all the way through. And depending on the processor you go to, like I use one out of LaSalle, Colorado. They just do really great work. But they do a lot of like buffalo, a lot of larger animals. And so space is a huge thing. So I guess to that, I would just recommend calling around to different processors to see who is available to do that, something like that for you. And yeah, it might cost a fee, especially if you're not using their actual processing and paying for the work. But that's the big thing. Call ahead, make sure that they have space for you. And if not, try another one. There's plenty of them around. But yeah, that's all I could say about that.
Yeah, no, dude, I think that's a great answer. And that would jive with what I've seen, Sam. I mean, the biggest thing, and I guess I would add is like maybe have yourself situated where you could, if all your options fall apart, like you have the ability to take care of it yourself. Because one of the issues that I found, it's related to what you're saying, is sometimes guys will say they can do it, but then they get these big influxes of meat and they can't deal with it. I mean, I've had processors to like that. I'm not asking them to even like hang anything. I'm asking them to literally do the whole processing, and they can't.
Yeah.
I had 2 bulls that I tried to take to a processor in northern New Mexico last year, and they just could not do it. And I was like, oh well, what do I do? What do I do now? You know what I mean? So yeah, you gotta, I think, like have multiple options. I guess one thing I would add for Gary, because I think he's traveling through multiple regions. You might kind of talk to different processors across the regions, because it gets elk season in one spot and their coolers might be full of elk, but if you go a couple 100 miles north on your way, there might be a processor that's completely empty and will just charge you a daily fee to hang it. You know what I mean? So that's my thought. Just like do some due diligence on it. I got lucky on it. I mean, there's a lot of guys that'll hang it. If you want to DIY it, man, a guy, as long as you try to keep the meat from getting wet, but a guy can dry ice meat for a long time. So that's an option for you, Gary.
I've been turned down from a processor. I had a skinned and quartered pronghorn buck, and I've been turned away because they couldn't fit it in their freezer. But the difference maker was, he said if it was deboned, it'd be a different story. And so just whatever can take up the least amount of space. I was just like, hang on, give me 10 minutes, and I went out of the parking lot and deboned it really quick.
Yeah.
That might make the world of difference there too. If as long as whatever they can do is just they have the space for it. Yeah,
sure. And then just making sure you're kind of capable of all that stuff and give yourself options, I think, is the biggest thing. Here's one. This is a good one. This is gonna be this is gonna be the last one. Then we're gonna give away. We're gonna give away all this great stuff. Okay. Last minute pack questions. Will a Yeti 210, a couple 65s be enough for 2 elk? What do you think?
Yeah, again, I do a lot of like deboning when I can, just to get the meat off the bone as fast as can, and obviously like that would fit. Otherwise, depends on how good your packing skills are and how much ice you're putting on it, I think.
So 210 is 200. Is that 210 quarts?
That's a good question.
I have no idea. So Eric says Yeti 210 fits 1 processed elk. And that would, if it's 210 quarts, which I'm assuming it is, I think that's about right, man. Particularly, I mean, if you debone it, you'd be good to go, right?
Yeah.
You know what? Because I figure that you can do, like, I could get a cow in like a 100 quart cooler plus a 48 quart cooler. You know what I mean? Like a boned out cow. Does that jive kind of with what you see, Sam?
I think so. Honestly, I've never used a Yeti cooler. I'm kind of cheap. I use like the nice Pullman ones from Walmart.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, I think that sounds about right.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay, so it's liters. I gotcha. Yeah, so it looks like there's some good info on that one in the chat too. But yeah, it sounds about right. The one thing I would say, man, if you guys start taking capes and hides, on elk they take a lot of space. So if you're doing that sort of deal, just make sure you account for that also. All right, man. Tons of good questions. I feel like I'm focusing on the chat, and I already got a shitload of good questions here. But let's do this. Let's do this giveaway. Let me lay down some things on this. Okay, first of all, let me tell everybody what it is. This thing kind of carried away, and I may miss a couple things, but guys, it's a rock stock from Shoot to Hunt. It's a custom Tika rifle from the guys at Unknown Munitions. It's a unknown suppressors, a Reaper suppressor, a hunt that all guide with the Infinite Outdoors guys on one of their properties in Colorado. A Revic scope, a Revic gift card for I think $1,250. All the details are on the website too, guys. A Kafaru pack and frame, an Invader Concepts bino harness, and a box of biltong. I apologize if I missed anything else, but a ton of good stuff. I honestly don't really want to give it all away, Sam. I'm like, dude, I really keep some of this shit. The rifle is cool. Like I have a really just like, nothing, no customization, just rock stock Tika. And I was looking at this rifle these guys made for this. I'm like, oh, this thing's awesome. Oh yeah, my knife. Thanks, Andrew. And I'm giving away one of my knives also, guys. My hunter knife. So yeah, let's see here. I have to, yeah, of course, Chase. Sorry, Sam. I love this message, dude. Like, I'm going to frame it. Cliff, if I shoot a bull this year, will you sign the skull? Yeah, for sure, dude. I don't know when and where, but we'll make it happen. But yeah, so that's all the stuff. So guys, a giveaway. Sam, you want to stay on for a couple more?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of how many people are saying congrats to Cody, man. They're gracious, not losers, but that's kind of cool to see.
I totally agree. I love Liam's, dude. You see that?
Let me see it.
I think you mispronounced my name. All right, guys, in some of my content, you're going to see that I've been using this chest holster from Invader Concepts. This is with my 10 millimeter. I also use it with my Glock 19 and even a PMR 30. I'm going to do a bunch of content here in the next couple months on that around bear defense. It should be interesting. It looks a little awkward to have your gun under your bino harness, but if you test out all the different variations, it is the best and you have it on you all the time. I do have a discount code. It's CliffG. And it's for 10% off. Go check them out. That's awesome. I like it, dude. Dude, I feel like I had a lot of weight on my shoulders on this one because it's like the biggest giveaway that I've ever done. And it's a ton of good shit. It really is. And we'll have some fun. Hunting too. So all right, good deal. Let's get back to a couple questions here, man. I won't keep you on here all night.
No worries, man. No worries.
Let's see. Okay. Oh, here's a good one, dude. How do you learn to recognize the smell of elk and use it as a sign indicator? Do you got thoughts on this, dude? Like, what would you call the smell of elk? I'm gonna put it up here.
It's there's really nothing else like it. And I guess the only way I can think of to learn to recognize it is to get into elk country, find wallows, whatever, find something that is going to be able to give you that scent. Just go spend time out in the elk woods. And because if you have breeze in your face and if there's any elk around, like it's unmistakable. The second you smell it, you know that that smell anywhere. You could be in the middle of the city and smell that smell and know there's elk around. There's kind of nothing else like it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, man. And there's some good like examples in the chat there. Like musty cattle or musky. Yeah, you know what I always say it smells like? At first I'd say, Sam, you're totally right. If it's unique. Like you're not gonna miss it. You know what I mean? It's gonna be like a smell. You're like, that's like it's
right.
Pretty freaking pronounced. To me, it smells like a dirt. It smells like if you've grown up around livestock or anything, it smells like a horse stall that's like way overdue from getting cleaned up. You know what
That's
I
a
mean?
good
Like
way to
that.
put it,
Like
yeah.
it's like that. It's like sawdust or straw that has that like kind of matted, like kind of like overdue for cleaning smell.
Yeah,
That's what
almost like a moldy. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
yeah.
Yeah, it is like it is very unmistakable, and it's kind of smell that like I mean elk hunters. I love it just because I know what it means, but it's kind of smell that if you smelled it just in your house, you'd go, "What the fuck is that?"
Yeah.
But it is it's very very unique.
Yeah, no, I agree. Um, and there's a bunch of good ones in there.
It's like
In
a
the
wrecking ball.
bunch of good ones in the chat. So I won't read them all, but there's a good one. So you guys go check that out. Let's see here. Oh, dude, this one may affect our friendship, dude. Spotting scopes, angled or straight.
It might. I don't use a spotting scope, so
Oh, okay.
hopefully that's the right answer here. I don't know. I think I can get the glassing that I get done with a good pair of binoculars. And spotting scope is to me it's just extra weight, and I don't know. I've never really used them. If somebody else has one, don't get me wrong. I'm going to look at it if they find something through it. But I can get, in my opinion, I can get just as much quality spotting done with a pair of binoculars.
Yeah, dude, I think that applies to a ton of types of hunts. I would agree with you. I think some people probably focus on it a little too much. Dude, like Colorado elk hunting is a perfect example. I mean, a guy can glass up elk from 2,000 yards away pretty readily, and pretty much have a pretty good idea if they're a legal bull or not, just with like a good pair of chest binoculars. So I agree with you on that. I use a spotter a fair amount. My thought on this, and this is from Jordan, I use an angled spotter primarily just because it's what I'm comfortable with. I've used it forever. I think there's good arguments on both. Angled spotters are a little bit easier if you're looking uphill a lot. If you're looking, if you're in the bottom of basins, you're looking up either at elk or goats or sheep or whatever. That angle does help you where you don't have to kink your neck all the time. The angled sucks for target acquisition because you don't have like an intuitive like oh there's the animal. It's not a straight line straight to the animal. You got to kind of deal with that angle in your own brain, and that takes a little time for people to get used to. And then a straight is way better if you're using it on the rim of a car door. So if you got like an adapter, or not a car door, a car window. So if you're glassing out of a truck at all and you've got an adapter for a spotter on the window, straight's way better because what happens on the angled is the angled part of the scope. It brings everything up high where you're like it's uncomfortable for most people, like your average statured guy to actually use a angled spotter on a window. So that's my thought on it, Jordan. In the end, man, it's just what you decide, and then most people, once they stick to it, once they've had one a certain way, they just keep using that because they're so used to it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Let's see here, dude. I'm gonna do one more, Sam. What do you want, dude? Do you want a mule deer question? You want an elk question?
Surprise me.
You know what?
What do you
I'm actually gonna do two. One of which is kind of a non-hunting related one, but I think you might have some insight onto it. And then the other one, it'll be a mule deer question. So Jeremy has a question. He says, which groups out west do you feel best connect hunters with landowners and government for wildlife and wilderness conservation?
Which groups out west do we feel?
Which groups are doing a good job of connecting landowners and government for wildlife and wilderness conservation?
Okay, this is going to be a biased answer, but I'm going to say Infinite Outdoors is at the top of that list.
I like it.
just because. So we've worked really hard to partner with organizations like the Mule Deer Foundation specifically for habitat improvement or different projects on private land. So we are taking that organization and connecting them with private landowners that we work with for all sorts of different projects. We did one, and gosh, the name of it is now escaping me. But we basically did a massive fencing project on with Mueller Foundation with some other guys like Hush and I think we had some Weatherby folks there, and we rebuilt, ripped out a bunch of sheep fencing along some BLM and replaced it with more conservation friendly fencing. Stuff like that. But we're trying to work with like National Wild Turkey Federation, Ducks Unlimited. Mueller Foundation is obviously the biggest one, but that's one of our biggest goals apart from, the private land hunting access is the conservation side of things. So again,
that's fair, Sam, because I know you guys do some stuff in that space. But I'm gonna dig a little bit deeper in this, dude, and just answer it to the extent you can. When you guys interact with landowners, and you're interacting with landowners that are obviously they're open to hunting for the sake of money, and they're probably open to hunting just because they're. There's probably not a lot of people that are just doing it for money. There's also probably guys that are like, oh yeah, if some people want to come out here and hunt and enjoy the land, and I'm not using it for that. Like, all good, right? They're pro hunting, at least to some extent.
Yep.
Dude, is there like what's the what outside of just getting paid by you guys or getting paid by hunters? Like, what other carrots are important to those guys? Like, what are they? Does that make sense? Like, what are they? Are they just concerned about the full-on ecosystem of their property, or are they just are a lot of them concerned like, hey, I just want to produce more ducks, so like I'm getting twice as much money from Infinite Outdoors? Do you have any opinion on that? Like, what their perspective is?
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously everybody's different, but like some of them, you hit the nail right on the head. They just want to share their property. They love it when people come out and use the property. They want to know, hey, what did you think? What could be better? That's a huge driving factor for a lot of landowners, is just sharing what they've got. Other parts of it, though, come back to like the management side of things. They don't have the time or the resources to manage how many hunters, how many deer, how many elk, whatever are being taken off this property throughout the year. And then they put that responsibility in our hands, and we help them manage it, and they can be pretty hands off. So not necessarily a money grab or like the driving factor, the driving force there isn't money, but they just want it to be managed properly, and they don't want to be as involved. The other part, we work with a lot of landowners that are very youth focused. And that's what makes them tick, is they get other people to bring youth hunters, youth and mentor. They just want to pass the hunting tradition down. And a lot of those they do it for free. They don't want the money. They want the liability coverage. They want the management, and they want to just provide that access. So everybody's different. A lot of them, it is money driven, just because farmers and ranchers, it's a hard way of life, and they can use that money to really make an impact. And then other people, they have a cool place. They want to share it with the world, and they want to do it safely and reasonably. And they use Infinite Outdoors to do that. Yeah,
no, I gotcha. And man, I've seen both sides of this whole deal in my life. And I see it on forums and stuff everywhere. And I think most people are rational about it. But for sure, there has been a decline in people just giving like open permission to property. And part of that is just like financial incentive. Like, there's more demand for access, so guys are going to charge. And I don't see why anybody would fault somebody that owns an asset for making money off of that. Just another stream of income. I think that's just a rational approach. But man, there's in this is what I'm most curious about, Sam, like how you guys address it in the long run. And for better or worse, how people treat private property is highly volatile, man. Like, there's some people that they'll leave every place better than they left it. And there's some people, you just wonder who the hell raised them. You know what I mean? And that's just the reality. And I'm biased, man. Like, for sure, I've hunted. Most of my hunting has been on public land. Most of my commercial activity as a guide and outfitter has been on public land. But I also grew up in a cattle ranching family, and I saw the other side of it. Like, sometimes the public and people you give permission to sucks. They just suck. And I think that's an unfortunate reality. But I think you guys have some cool things in place that, I would guess if I was a landowner, I'd be kind of looking at that like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like this is addressed. This is a thing that's addressed. You know what I mean? Which is cool because I think that that'll actually grow the overall opportunity. Because man, there's a lot of guys that I think would love to allow hunting, love to make a little money, but they just don't want to deal with the bullshit. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I would say, like 98% of outdoorsmen hunters, we're all cut from the very same cloth, and we treat that ground with respect. And we see that across all the Infinite Outdoors properties. Like, it's a very large majority of people who leave the place better than they found it. And we're really grateful for that. Landowners are really grateful for that. These hunters go through the vetting process to make sure that they're, stand-up individuals before they get to access that property. But in the off chance that somebody leaves their shotgun shells spread out all over the place or leaves some damages of property, our legal side of things with Infinite Outdoors, when you're booking a property, there's a paper trail. So we know who was on the property. If a landowner calls us and says, hey, whoever's here Friday left the place in just a shit show, we know exactly who was there Friday. And when they book that hunt, our terms of service, they're basically agreeing to they're agreeing to the rules and regulations. And if they violate those rules and regulations, they're agreeing to being fined. And that keeps people pretty honest. But in the event that something happens, we do have that backup plan. And a landowner has the ability to blacklist users off of the Infinite Outdoors platform if they don't want other landowners to be subject to whatever that hunter did. It doesn't happen pretty much really ever. Again, it keeps people pretty honest when they click that button. And a lot of the outdoorsmen that we work with, 99% of them are just stand-up guys who are more grateful for the piece of property that they get to hunt than anything. They just want to escape crowds, maybe teach their kid what hunting is really supposed to be like and do it in a peaceful environment. So they treat it really well. But yeah, like you said, if in the event if anything happens, we do have that covered. Our CEO has spent just a shitload of time in the legal aspect of our company to make sure that landowners are taken care of, because without landowners, obviously, we don't have much of a business. So we need to make sure that those people are comfortable with who's coming out to their property.
Yeah. No, I hear you, dude. And I guess the only reason I brought it up, Sam, and I guess for everybody watching this too, or who watches the replay, is I think that's actually like a win-win of the whole deal. Because that's actually taking, dude, there's a lot of stuff that I don't think people realize how much land doesn't get hunted because of that aspect. Like it used to get hunted, but it no longer gets hunted because this is really hard for people to administer. And the reality is, like, I mean, you're out in Colorado. I mean, maybe on the ducks and geese and stuff, it's a little bit different. I'm not too familiar with that, but the big game stuff, the income that comes from big game is like, it's so marginal relative to the asset value of the ranches. It's very easy for people just to say, like, I'm not doing it. It's just too much pain in the ass. So like, I think that at least my hope is that either you guys nail it or somebody nails this component of it. So all of a sudden you have a bunch more stuff that hasn't been hunted in the last 15 years. People actually can hunt, maybe it's wishful thinking. I don't know if you guys think about that much, but I think it's an interesting topic.
No, and that, truthfully, a lot of the landowners that we work with right now are people who haven't allowed hunting like for the past decade. And A, that makes the hunting there even better because it's been unpressured for so long. But B, yeah, they're a lot more comfortable with it because it's not just some random guy showing up knocking on their door that you don't know from Adam. They've gone through the system. They've gone through the vetting process. They are, legally bound to a certain set of rules and regulations. And the landowners, that's a big selling point for them on our side to bring them onto the platform is we make sure that they know the steps we've taken to protect them. And because, a lot of people have been burned, whether it's a gate that got left open or a property that was damaged, by somebody random that stopped by and asked for permission. Those days are dwindling where you can knock on a door and get access to ground. And so we're trying to become that middleman we're trying to bridge that gap and bring that private land access back.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. I have to laugh at this. This one, dude. Mile High Hunter. Are you a pirate or a hunter? Angled. Strong opinion, dude. Back on the spotting scope.
That's good.
But yeah, dude, I'm a hunter. Angled. So I'm with you, Mile High Hunter. Thanks, Chase. He's give us a thanks for the giveaway for sure, man. So all right, let's do. Let's do one more question for you, man, and I'll let you go. Oh, this would be good because we might have different takes on it. I'm gonna post it up here. So mule deer question. I have a private land mule deer hunt November 16th to the 20th on a property I've never hunted. How should I approach it? Put that in here. Then this is from Jake. Go ahead, Sam. Did you catch that?
Yeah. I mean, the first step, like if you're not going to be able to get out there and see the property before the hunt, the first step would be obviously just doing some e-scouting, looking at the property as much as you can on whatever platform you're using. Side note, Infinite Outdoors has mapping features, you know, if you want to sign up for that membership. But doing a little bit of e-scouting, and then, you know, a hunt like that, or what was the dates, the 12th through the 16th?
November 16th to 20th. So like basically, and I'm assuming he's talking about Colorado, Sam, so you know, deer rutting kind of.
Yeah. Yep. And if that's Colorado, I'm trying to think, I guess if it's a Western slope, it might be like a third rifle hunt. That's probably exactly what it is. Yeah. But you know, the first day and a half of that hunt might just be a recon mission where you're getting up to an area where you can see as much of the property as you possibly can in glassing. You know, obviously the hot times of day, first thing in the morning, last thing at night, when they're going to be on their feet and moving, finding out where they're bedding, where they're feeding, where they're going, where they're coming. You might just have to spend some time one of those days of that hunt actually putting in the work to find out where they're at. And a lot of that stuff you could probably find out by e-scouting as well. But you never know, you know, call the local biologist, you know, call the local game warden, whoever it is that can give you some more intel about population in the area. Whatever you can find out about the area before you show up is going to help you in the long run.
All right, guys, so I wanted to mention that I'm having these custom skinning knives made. These are called Cliff Skinner. I've got a whole bunch of reasons why I've had this knife made the way that it's made. I've got a short video on the website. The details are there. pursuitwithcliff.com. Click in the corner up by shop. You'll see Cliff Skinner. Click that puppy. You'll get all the details. Yeah, no, I like it, dude. You know, I would add, this is Jake. Jake, my thought on it, man, is it does depend, like what Sam's getting at, if you have access to it beforehand. Man, if you do have access to the area beforehand, well, it sounds like you're hunting private. Even if it's like 2 weeks ahead of time or whatever, make a good note of where the pockets of does are. It seems to me, in the mountains for sure, you know, once you get into late October, like I always found that the deer in the mountains, if it's a mountainous area, regardless of the weather conditions and the snow cover, they make a big move like October 25th to the 1st of November. And the does will basically move to like a staging area if the snow doesn't kick them down. So if you can get in there and scout week before the season, or, you know, a couple weeks before the season, or as Sam says, maybe you just have to focus a day of the actual hunt on it, go out there and just find those little pockets of does. There might be 2 of them here, there might be 6 of them here, 5 of them here. Mark all that down, and then, man, from November 16th to the 20th, like every day, just go check those does. Like bucks will be rutting at that time. They're not, you know, I always thought that, to me, it seemed like up in the mountains, like right around Thanksgiving was like the peak of the rut. But the dates you're talking about, I mean, if you watch pockets of does, bucks are going to show up. They're gonna show up and check them. So if you have that information ahead of time, it'll help you a lot. And the other piece of advice I'd say that time of year is, if you see a buck that you want to shoot it, and like be pretty like on it about opportunities, because you can see a buck that's with these does, and you're like, I don't want to push it. He'll be there tomorrow. He probably won't be there tomorrow because he's gonna go run off to another set of does during that period of time, and you'll never see him again. So I would consider that. The other thing I would say is, like, if you can, when you're glassing a lot, depending on the country, if it's big, wide open country, really learn how to get in tune with the does, like mannerisms. A lot of times, like if you're looking at like really wide open country and you can see 30 does, but they're all a mile apart, right? And you're looking at them from a long distance, you can look at a pocket of does, and usually within 5 minutes, they'll tell you if there's a buck around, because they'll be more nervous. They'll be looking through the sagebrush, whatever. If you start to see that and you pick up on that on deer, you'll see those mannerisms, and then you could just be like, oh, there's a buck. and then you might have to look for 30 minutes, but then all of a sudden just a dumb rutting buck will come cruising through the sagebrush. You know what I mean? So it does help to kind of have that in your back pocket. But yeah, good question, dude. Let's see here, man. Dude, let's do one more audio one, Sam. Then I'm gonna let you go.
All right.
I'm keeping you for a whole hour.
That's all right.
See
I'm here for it.
Have you hunted fourth season?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Let's see here. Let me take this off. All right, bear with me, guys. This one is from Levi. It's an audio one, so listen up here.
Hey, Cliff. Levi here. I was wondering, what are some good tactics for fourth rifle season in Colorado? I'm going to a new area, and I'm kind of thinking there's going to be a bunch of snow. So I was just wondering what your thoughts were and kind of how to maybe go about a new area. I'm checking out the flat tops this year, and I'll be hunting alone. Thanks.
Sam, did he say if he was deer or elk hunting?
I don't think he said. I think he just said fourth season.
All good. What's your thoughts, man?
I'll let you go ahead on this one. Go ahead. I've answered all of them first, right?
Yeah. I'll put you on the spot, dude. Yeah, so fourth rifle season. The first thing I would do, first thing I'll say is, and this was, who was it from? Sorry, dude, I like from Levi. So Levi, I'll shield my own kind of content a little bit. It's not on a YouTube video. It's on the paid side of my membership group. I have an interview with an old guide of mine named Cody who hunts fourth season a ton. And man, I honestly, Levi, you can message me and maybe I can get you access to it or whatever, or just pay the 12 months. Just watch that one, or pay for 1 month of service on the paid side. It's $12. That one video will be worth it to you. Cody hunts the fourth season flat tops a ton. He talks about his setup, how he hunts them. I've known him for years. I ran into him as a public hunter that when I was guiding, I competed with him. He ended up guiding for me for years. Great guy, very humble, but highly accomplished on that front. And he talks a lot about how he specifically hunts fourth season. So I think that'd be very valuable to you. It'll be worth your $12. And feel free to just watch that one and then cancel your membership. It's not going to hurt my feelings, man. So that's my thoughts on that. I think there's just a lot of depth there. His experience with fourth season, particularly the flat tops, even though I guided in there for years, I hunted fourth season off horses primarily. I didn't camp in the backcountry. I hunted off horseback from access points. So it's my experience during fourth season is very different. Some general tactics I would say is, it's going to be condition based a little bit, but usually up in the mountains you've got snow. Really, if you want to expand the value of your glassing, really focus on tracks. Like try to find tracks, kind of get an idea. If you're elk hunting, it doesn't really matter. If you're elk or deer hunting, it's pretty easy to distinguish the two different tracks from 500 yards away, from 1,000 yards away. So do that. Like if you're not already tuned up on that, figure that out. Figure out how to do that because it'll exponentially make you more effective. A lot of times, if you're elk hunting, those bulls will not be moving at all. Like they'll be in a 600, yard diameter circle, and they're just waiting for a bunch of snow. And until that snow happens, they're not going to leave that little hole. And if you're glassing for tracks, like a telltale sign is you look up in some little crack or little wedge in a drainage or whatever that's hard to see, and you're looking in there and you see two sets of bull tracks. If you see that kind of thing, those bulls are in there. And they're not going anywhere unless you get big weather. So you can just spend your whole hunt hunting those elk that are right in that little hole. And so that's kind of my thought on it. If it's fourth season for deer, kind of rely on some of the tactics I just mentioned. So that's my thoughts on it. You got anything else, Sam?
No, honestly, that was great, and I should have been taking notes while you're talking about it. Yeah, no, in my own experience, again up there, most of the 4 seasons that I've been a part of were up there, like White River National Forest, and so what I found is that it shockingly to me, like it takes more snow than you would think for elk to completely move out of an area. They're still pretty powerful creatures with a foot, 2 foot of snow. I mean, it takes, at least what I've seen, more than I would have expected for elk to completely vacate an area. The other thing that I've had success with, specifically in a fourth rifle hunt, is just kind of thinking about what it would be like if you were walking around in the woods all day and the trees were covered in snow. The sun pops out and starts melting the snow on the trees and starts dripping water all over the place. I mean, that's getting all over an elk. And from what I found, they don't really like being wet. So on a sunny day like that, go out and glass some open hillsides, and look for the tracks where they're going. And if it's headed towards one of those hillsides, they're probably going to come back when the weather gets nice. But those are the only things I would add. Otherwise, that's just kind of the stuff that I've seen and had personal success with.
Nice, dude. That's a great tip, man. Good stuff. I saw Joe the Arctic Fox. Yeah, dude, we gave it away to Cody. So sorry, Joe, but welcome, man. I'm gonna answer a bunch more questions here. But Sam, thanks for your time, dude. I'm gonna let you go, and then I'm gonna do some rapid fire for these guys. But you want to let guys know like where they can follow you, where they can get questions answered on your side of things?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we have a mobile app, but we also have a website for Infinite Outdoors. It is infiniteoutdoorsusa.com. On several different pages on that website, we have basically a support link. So if you just reach out through the website, either myself or one of our other team members will respond to any questions you have. And we're open to fielding all kinds of questions, whether you're looking for a hunt, you're just starting, you have a tag in hand, looking for a place to go, questions about Infinite in general, send them our way. We are more than happy to help out in any way we can. But then other than that, thanks for having me on, Cliff. I appreciate it. And thank you for setting this whole giveaway up. And we're excited for the actual elk hunt to come down the pipe. So thank you again.
Yeah, of course. And then also, I failed to say this, but Sam, I know Michael's going to help me guide some of the hunts, and then you're going to help me guide some of the cow hunts in November, correct? So
yes, sir.
Any of you guys that are joining me on those cow hunts, here's Sam. We'll have some fun. And it sounds. I was actually just talking to Michael about that ranch. It sounds like it should be pretty fun.
It should be a blast. It's the kind of place where while you're driving in, you'll go, "There's no way. There's no way there's elk out here." They're out there. So yeah, it's gonna be a blast.
Yeah. And I've been to a few of those places up kind of in that region. Like it's like there's no topography, and then all of a sudden there's like a little oasis of a little structure and trees and stuff like that. So.
Yep.
The eastern part of Colorado is really interesting that way. You know what I mean? Like you're like, how are elk here? And then you're like, oh, they're here.
I love it. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You kind of come down the road and it's just nothing but prairie, and then all of a sudden there's this oasis of bluffs with tons of cover, tons of trees. There's super deep canyons. It's going to be fun. So I'm excited.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thanks, Sam. I'll talk to you later, dude.
Okay, sounds good. Good luck with the rest of it. Take care.
Yeah, thanks, dude. All right, guys. All right, so I'm gonna go rapid fire here. I made a somewhat of a promise to folks that submitted questions here via audio, so I wanna answer those. All right, one more from Michael. Hopefully, you guys can hear this.
How do you differentiate or allocate time from glassing versus walking and looking for signs on the ground, such as droppings or prints? Obviously, the hardest part is to find the animals, and you can go after them, but I don't know kind of where the line is to sitting and looking or to actually making a trek. Thanks.
Yeah, so this is a good question, man, and I get it every once in a while, and it's a great question, but it's also a hard one for me to answer because it's really dependent on where you're hunting, the topography, the density of the game, the vegetation, the effectiveness of glassing, how well you can logistically get around. So I think it's better to answer it with a framework, Michael. The way to think about it like that trade-off is if it is by nature really glassable open country, and you can get from this glassing point to the next glassing point to the next glassing point pretty readily, then I know this sounds obvious, but you should just heavily rely on that, because that's going to be, even you can get in these dry spells of glassing, right? It's let's take like the standard example. We're hunting first rifle season in Colorado. Conditions suck. No snow on the top. 70 degrees during the day, just ridiculously warm. Elk are dispersed over an enormous amount of habitat, but we're in, let's say we're in the Rome Plateau, or we're in the Flat Tops, or we're in parts of Wyoming where we could literally glass 3 miles for elk and be effective. In those situations, you're still better off relying on glassing, because even if you're limited to really those elk are only going to come out like the last hour of light, the first 30 minutes of light, like that's when you're going to glass them up. As long as you're there at those good spots at the right time, you can still see so much. It's always going to benefit you just tilting to glassing. Just, you got to think about it mathematically. Like, I'm seeing so much country right now. If I'm in the right spot at the right time, this is the best way for me to up my chances. Now, if you're in areas where that doesn't exist, and this is where it catches people, because there's so much emphasis on glassing in like the Western hunting world, and I'm guilty of pushing this more than as much as anybody. I don't probably make this I don't really talk about this enough, because I for sure have that bias. A lot of that bias on the glassing front is that I've traditionally hunted and guided in like crazy wide open country, right? So you have to take a thought process of that. Like, if your best glassing points, all you're looking at is one hillside, you're looking at, you're capable of only looking at, 50 degrees of the 360 degree circle. That's all you could see. That's the only open vegetation. That's the only hillside you can see. And you're spending a lot of time to get there in the morning, a lot of time to get there at night, and it's very limited. In that case, you need to discount that. You're gonna be like, I'm only looking at this. I could go travel to 10 different, high value spots, wallows, trail crossings, things, along those lines, where I could go check for super fresh sign, and that would be more effective in terms of trying to narrow down the country where the elk are at. So I hope that gives you a perspective. I can't really give you like a specific, you should be looking 50% of the time, you should be glassing 50% of the time, and then 50% of the time looking for sign. There's really not. You just got to kind of have it. You have to, in your mind, figure out what just mathematically makes the most sense for you to narrow down the country to where the elk are. And I think that plays into this, is like, in a sense, like, that's the most important thing. You have to. So many guys waste a bunch of time, 80% of their hunt, in an area where the elk are not. Right? I say this and I laugh a little bit at myself, because I fall for this too. I just guided bear hunts for 10 days, and 6 or 7 of those days I was not where the real density of the bears were. It's not an easy decision to make, right? You can get snookered into an area by just seeing one elk or seeing one fresh track. So you got to always make these judgment calls. It just is what it is. But it's a challenge that we're all doing this trade-off. But great question, Michael. Let's see here. Oh, here's one from John. Let me answer this one in the chat. Do the Graxaw boot dryers work well in the cold, even if you don't have radiant heat from a fire and stove? And this is from Elijah. So my experience with them, and that he put out a new set of them, which looks cooler, is smaller, more compact. They seem to be very, very functional. I used them a little bit 2 weeks ago, and so my question or my answer to this is that they work well in cold, they work well when it's wet, they work well in a lot of different conditions, but you have to have dry heat. So if you don't have either an electric heater or a fire or a wood stove, they don't work that well in my opinion. If you have like only propane heat in your tent, I mean like in a wall tent, obviously you don't have propane heat in your tent, period, if it's like a sealed tent or anything like that. But if all you have in your wall tent is like a cook stove, they're not going to work that well because there's just too much humidity. It's not drying out the air. You've got to have a dry source of heat. So for most people, that means like a little box stove on the lightweight side, like the little, I call them like little jet fuel wood stoves, right? Because they're, the ones from Kafaru. Argali makes good ones. Lots of guys make them, the little box stoves, little titanium ones that are light. But you're just throwing wood in there and it's firing through it and heating up your teepee or your tent or whatever, your Florida shelter. Those work great with those boot dryers. Wood stove works great with those boot dryers. Next to a fire works great with those boot dryers. But if you don't have that, they don't work that well. I'm not saying it's a bad product, but that's something you gotta have. All right, let's see here, guys. It's keeping me going here. Oh, we still got a pretty good chunk of folks on the call. That's awesome. Let's get into. I have some. Okay, so I answered the ones on the private land related ones with Sam. Let's go through some rapid fire ones, and then I will get back. So, okay, bear with me here, guys. Neville's always got good questions, so I appreciate this. So Neville's question is, do you have a mantra or breathing technique to fight buck or bull fever right before the shot? So Neville, I use a similar protocol. I would say that it's a similar shot sequence to what Joel Turner teaches, but a little more compressed. And to answer your question more directly and keep this rapid fire, I use pull, 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 and then I do shoot on the bottom of my X cell typically. So I know that sounds like, how do you do both? I just do, and it works out fine for me. If I'm not there, then I'll take another breath, pull, pull. That's how I do it. That's how I do it. It seems to help. It seems to help for me. And breathing it, like shooting at the bottom of the respiratory pause, or at the bottom of the breath on the respiratory pause. For me, it does help. I've tried ignoring breath. I've tried doing it with a mantra and it does help me to do the latter. Hope that answers that question. Let's see here, Elijah. Oh, dude, I got to skip your question. I just answered one of yours, but I'll get back to it if I have time. Jacob asks, do you ever see people using non-motorized bikes to move meat down trails? Is stashing a bike near a trail to ride in and pack out viable? So non-motorized bikes. So I think we're talking about like bicycles, not e-bikes, not dirt bikes. So I have used e-bikes and dirt bikes quite a bit historically. I have not used non-motorized bikes. But I will say that a very good use for non-motorized bikes, particularly if you're capable as a mountain bike hunter or mountain bike rider, is there's tons of glassing points that take a lot of guys 3 hours to get to that a competent mountain biker can get to in 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 45 minutes, where it's legal and that access is available. I think it is great for that. I think and this may be that there's just not like a huge overlap between mountain bikers and hunters, or at least it doesn't seem like there's to me. I think it's an underutilized tactic for guys that are comfortable as mountain bikers. So I don't know if that's what you're talking about, Jacob, but that's a utility that I do think exists and is probably underutilized. In terms of using bikes to haul meat, I really don't know the answer to that. I think it'd be tough. I have used like my Quiet Cat e-bike. I've hauled a lot of gear in the little trailer I have for it, and then I've also hauled meat in it too, and it works great. But I don't know that non-motorized bikes. I don't know how useful that would be. I've used an e-bike a lot on logging roads for locating elk, and then spring bear hunting. I've used it a lot for that. And then I've used, before I had an e-bike, I used a dirt bike for that a lot too, like a lightweight one. So that's how I've used them. One thing I will say, actually, I just recently talked to somebody that's, I would say they work at one of the bigger e-bike companies. Historically, they're in the know on this. I get a feeling, this is just how I'm handicapping it, I actually think the pendulum of e-bike access might actually swing back a little bit on, obviously on non-wilderness stuff. So U.S. Forest Service, even the roadless areas, BLM, I think you're probably going to see a little bit of a swing where e-bikes fall within the category of legal in a lot of areas, obviously within the same rules of no creating new trails, those sort of things. But I actually think that we might see a little more access for e-bikes than we have in the past. I don't know for sure, but that's kind of what I hear whisperings of internally. So yeah, that kind of covers that. Didn't answer your question directly, man, but that's my thoughts on the whole bike thing. Let's see here. Guys, I've been using onX Maps for almost 2 decades now, hunting, guiding, outfitting. It is the gold standard tool when it comes to mapping software in the hunting world. They've been a huge supporter of my content for multiple years, so if you want to support me and you want to support them, use my code CliffG for 20% off at onxmaps.com. It is an awesome tool that I use all the time when I'm preparing for hunts, and I use it almost every single day in the field. For navigation, knowing unit boundaries, knowing private land boundaries, it is the tool you have to have. Lyman had a good, let's see, be careful with your mountain bike load limit. I've thought about it, but I couldn't carry bone out quarters on my full suspension bikes. So yeah, Lyman's probably way more up to speed on this. But that's kind of like what I thought intuitively, man. I don't know that mountain bikes would allow for even, I'm such a low level mountain biker. Personally, I'd be afraid of even bringing much gear on a mountain bike. But meat for sure would probably be an issue. See here. Let's answer this. See any bears running around November, or is it too late in the season? My experience with them, man, I have seen them in early November in high altitude areas. Just weird. I got pictures of bears running across the snow. I see tracks periodically. I think it's tough to specifically hunt them that period of time because it's weird. Like, once those big food sources, once the acorns are gone, once all the trees defoliate, all the berries are gone, they're not concentrated. So a lot of them are going and starting to den, and everything else is just spread out. It's not, maybe there's somebody out there that knows how to key in on them. I don't know how to key in on them once the trees defoliate, once all the feed's gone. But there might be somebody that does. I have to laugh at Andrew's note there. If you don't read the load limit, it doesn't have one. And then Lyman's got a good point there too about keeping your front teeth. So anyways, Tim's question, what is your timeline? What is your time? I'm gonna, sorry guys, bear with me a second. I'm gonna put this up on the screen, kind of helps. Lots of good stuff in the chat, guys, on the bike question from people that are probably better informed than I am. Tim, this is Tim's question. What's your timeline for hunting burn areas from time zero until recovery to mature timber? So, man, the burn deal, particularly in the mountains, so the reality of hunting burns, and I get an enormous amount of questions on this, is every burn is different particularly in the mountains of Colorado. It all depends on, I should say this is mountains across the West. It all depends on what the fuel sources were and how the burn burnt. On one extreme, take some of those burns like, those big burns in California, right? Like a bunch of old growth timber, a bunch of overgrown shit on fire, crazy hot burns. I'm trying to think of the one that I've been in, like that Dixie burn out there. That's near like Lake Almanor. I think I'm getting that right. Like that thing just nuked. It just nuked. It's like almost sterilized the ground from what I've seen in spots. Like it could take 5, 6, 7, 10 years before it's very good habitat at all, before there's any good feed, that type of burn. And then I've seen burns in Colorado that they started early in the burn season. They were put out, and before the freezes and like the later fall stuff, green grass was growing back in them because they burnt so quick. They burnt with less heat. Trees stayed alive. So there's this huge spectrum. The answer to your question is when they start to produce those new fresh grasses, they will be good for elk. Elk are going to be optimizing when we're talking about feed. They're going to be optimizing, looking for the slow growing grasses, the young grasses, which burns produce a lot of when they first come back. So does intense cattle grazing, actually produces the same thing, right? Intense cattle grazing, cattle get pulled off. If you get green grass, that fresh new green grass, elk will hit it. Now, I have to say this because it's very important for a lot of the hunts that a lot of you guys are doing. Burns are problematic for elk in areas that those elk are getting the shit hunted out of them, and they know this because you can see into them. So don't get the idea that elk that are heavily pressured are going to hit a 2-year-old burn that's just, I mean, it looks like neon green because there's so much feed in it. You'd think that every deer and elk for 100 miles would be in that thing. Don't think or just assume that it's going to be a great spot in an area where elk get hunted a ton, because elk will optimize staying away from pressure above optimizing feed. So they will, if it's a burn that has no cover in it, a ton of grass, great feed, don't be surprised if there's no elk there. Just because either the elk tried it and they immediately got pressure on them, or they just know in that region that if they're in the open, they don't have a lot of cover, they're going to get shot at, then they won't go there. It won't be a good spot until there's some cover, until they feel safe there. So just keep that in mind. So hopefully that answers your question, Tim. Already answered Jake's question. Jason's question: what's the all-around 30 cal or 7.62 round for Western big game? So off the top of my head, 7.62 same as 30 cal, right? So we're talking about the same, or it's like whatever, like a smidge difference. So 30 cal cartridge for Western big game. So first of all, on the cartridge stuff, I got a lot of questions on cartridges and calibers. To me, all of it is a bit splitting hairs. My general take is that most 30 calibers are bigger than optimal for most hunters who want to shoot a lot, and they're shooting rifles that are made for the utility of dragging around the mountains. And that it all comes down to the fact that most 30 cal cartridges are heavier recoiling because they're long cartridge with a lot of powder in it, right? To push that bigger diameter bullet. So a lot of people don't shoot them well. Now, I have to say this, that I'm not saying that they're not great choices. Tons of elk have been killed with 30-06. Tons of elk have been killed with the 300 Win Mag, 300 PRC. It's all good. But my general take is that most guys become recoil sensitive to them. Now, if you got a little bit heavier rifle, you got a brake on it, you got a suppressor, all that good stuff, this may not apply to you, right? But that's my general thought. I think that, if you for sure want to go that route, you're a bigger guy, you feel like you're not going to be recoil sensitive, you're going to take some of those precautions, brake or suppressor, pad, all those sort of things. The 30-06, the 300 Win Mag, 300 PRC, all good. Great, right? Those are fine. I think that if you want to be able to just shoot a 30 cal bullet, have a lot of ammo availability, you might be a little recoil sensitive. You don't mind giving up a little ballistic coefficient on your bullets just because it's an older cartridge and it can't have those long high BC bullets. I think a 308's great. I have 7-8 rifles that are chambered in 308. And so I like it. The compromise versus some of these other cartridges that you mentioned, Jason, is that when you look at the envelope, I'm using well, it's called the envelope of like velocity that most of those 308 bullets are going to perform in, you're probably limited to sub 400 yards with your 308. The reality is, for 98 point whatever percent of elk hunters, you probably should be shooting less than 400 yards anyway. So it's a great caliber on that front. So yeah, if you want to go with a 30 cal, that's kind of my thoughts on that front. Lyman, yes, good luck, dude. For sure. Okay, so let's see here, guys. Next question here. We'll give it another 30 minutes. I'm going to jam through all these. Let's see here. Shelby asked, have you had a client out hike you? How do you stay in archery elk shape? I have. So I'll be totally transparent with you. This is probably the first year that I've had a client that is like quite a bit in better shape than me. So Mick, if you're out there, you know who I'm talking about. I spent a lot of time with Mick. He's in better shape than me. He lives at altitude. I no longer live at altitude. It's embarrassing, but it is what it is. To I guess answer this with some valuable information, I think that pace is very relevant. If you're in a group with people who are in better shape than you, be very cautious of constantly trying to stay at their pace, because it will burn you out if you're not in as good a shape as them, particularly at altitude. So keep that in mind. To answer Shelby's question more directly, how do you stay in archery elk shape? I try to be active throughout the year. I'm 40 now. I think more and more, even in my mind, I've done a good job of this in the past, but I try not to get out of shape. For me personally, and this is very much a personal thing, I stay in shape by doing things that I enjoy. I'm crazy into jiu-jitsu. That's been my primary cardio for probably the last 7 or 8 years. Training 3 or 4 times a week. That's the primary way I do it. It's kind of a cheat code for me personally, but it's also what I recommend to other people. If there's some sort of other activity that gives you cardio, keeps your core strong, and you enjoy it, go do it. Play tennis, play pickleball, jiu-jitsu, other martial arts, any of that stuff. I'm not saying that it's a good prescription, guys, to staying in shape. I'm saying it's what works for me. The other thing I do is I do calisthenics. Helps my core, helps my back whenever I'm backpack hunting, that sort of thing a lot. I have found that I used to have a lot of back pain. The minute I started to focus on my core and try to kind of quit being such a skinny fat type of guy, all of those things got better. I no longer had back pain. I just was more comfortable in the mountains once I focused on my core. It was counterintuitive for me. I'm pretty naive on this front. I'm gonna have the guy from the high. I'm planning on. I got a connection with the folks that wrote that high altitude training book. I'm gonna reach out to him, try to get him on the podcast. I'm gonna try to focus on this a little bit in the next 6 months to a year. Just really trying to get some people that know what the hell they're talking about on this front, and get them on the podcast, get them on the YouTube channel. So yes, John, awesome, dude. 41-year-old purple belt. I'm a 40-year-old purple belt, dude. We should do an expedition match. Yeah, that's awesome to hear, dude. I know there's a bunch of jiu-jitsu guys out there. Let's see here. Yeah, back to the questions. Okay. Jesse says, as a successful mule deer hunter struggling on elk, what strategies differ the most? So this is going to be based on my experience with mule deer and elk. It may apply. There's a lot of different types of mule deer hunting, a lot of different types of elk hunting, Jesse. But what I have found is that mule deer are generally, it's more about knowing the deer, even down to like individual deer in a certain area, knowing the traditional spots, knowing the traditional rutting areas, knowing the traditional migratory areas. Elk, to me, is more about knowing the country. So knowing the 30 spots that if they're not here, they're here. If they're not here, they're there. Like knowing all those different spots with elk, I think is much more important. And a lot of times that comes down to knowing the country better than everybody else when it comes to elk hunting, because elk, they are more flexible than deer, generally more prone to adjusting off of pressure and hiding out. They can live in a lot of different habitats. They don't always stick to the same migratory paths. 200 elk will be in this basin. They get bumped over to another basin. They go down a completely different way to the winter range than they did the year previous. Mule deer almost never do that. So there's big differences there. Elk are just in general more adaptable. So like I said, just has to do with knowing the country better. And I guess I guess to simplify all of that, I think that elk, a lot of times, particularly if they're getting a lot of hunting pressure, there is a little bit more of a random element to luck. Like sometimes the balls just bouncing around the pinball game and you happen to be in the right spot. Elk tend to fall that way a little bit more than mule deer. Mule deer, you got to kind of know where some bucks are. You got to kind of know where some bucks hang out historically. You got to kind of know the migratory paths that they've used in the past. William asks, good sources for buying traditional black powder for flintlocks and caplocks. Vince, are you on the call, dude? I have no answer to this. William, I apologize, but Vince, Woodlander Vince, if you're on the call, man, please throw in there in the chat where you buy traditional black powder for flintlocks and caplocks. He would be the guy. So sorry I don't have a good answer to that, William. Let's see here. Okay, Glendon asks, another cartridge question. What do you think of the 6.5 PRC as an elk caliber? And I had a couple other questions on the 6.5 PRC. Plenty of gun for elk. That's my answer. Becoming very popular. I've got a couple rifles chambered in it. High BC bullets, high performing rifle. It's all good. I don't think I have anything to worry about shooting elk with the 6.5 PRC. I have noticed this a little bit, and I think it's worth mentioning. These PRC cartridges in the hunting context, one thing that I have noticed with folks, and there may be people on the call that have a very like even more nuanced perspective on this, but the shoulder of these cartridges is it's a heavier angle, right? And so one of the issues with that is the spec has to be a little bit tighter for them to chamber correctly. So one thing to keep in mind, and I'm not just knocking on the 6.5 PRC, all these sharp shouldered cartridges, one thing that can be a little bit of a bummer when you're hunting is a lot of rifles, you can't baby them when you run the bolt. And there's a practical negative aspect of this. And go check if you have a 6.5 PRC, a 300 PRC, whatever, check that this is the case. Try to chamber real slow, like you're trying to be quiet, right? Try to chamber real slow and see if you're able to see if you run into problems. A lot of times the bullet, the tip of the bullet will dive on you, and it'll hit outside of the actual barrel, and all of a sudden it won't chamber. Whereas if you run the bolt sturdy and run it with some momentum, you won't run into that at all. It's something to think about, because I've noticed with these cartridges in a lot of different rifles and a lot of different actions, guys are running into this. The solution is to run the bolt quickly and firmly, but that could be an issue because it's loud when you run a bolt quickly and firmly. So you got to kind of understand that if you're shooting these cartridges. I've noticed that a little bit. Let's see here. I saw a question. Yeah, of course, man. You're head on out, dude. Dana Any thoughts on the 7mm backcountry? I think you're going to see more and more of this kind of stuff because it's just taking advantage, or it's trying to get on the wave of short barrels, suppressors, mountain rifles, but having enough velocity to be able to shoot out to these 500, 600, 700, 800 yards with bullets that are still going to perform at those speeds that you get out there. So you're going to have, basically all this length compressed into these rifles, and then, and that the suppressor is part of that, right? Because you want a short gun to start with, short rifle to start with, because now you're adding 6, 7, 8 inches of suppressor on there. So that's all the 7 backcountry is about, right? It's about the industry trying to get on that and provide the answer to everything. From my perspective, I haven't shot one. I haven't tested one, so I can't say it's untested or anything like that. To me, if a cartridge has not been out in the world for a couple of years, I don't have a big incentive to involve myself in it, because there's like so many good cartridges out there that have been out there forever. I don't want to have a gun that may go, that cartridge may go by the wayside, and I may not be able to get ammo for it. And I think that's even the bigger thing with the 7mm backcountry due to the hybrid case. As far as I know, it probably not ever going to be reloadable, but that in my mind is not that big of a deal. The bigger deal is that you've got very limited ammo availability. So I don't have any interest in it right now. I love the idea. I love what it's trying to do in terms of answer a problem and a demand for what people are looking for. That's my thoughts on it. Let's see here. Spencer asks, elk hunting or spear fishing, which is better? Honestly, for me, spear fishing is. That's a biased, absolute biased perspective at where I'm at in life, and to some extent, it's a new love for me, even though I've been doing it for quite a while now. And so it's a fresh adventure to me, and I look forward to fall, like the end of fall and winter, so I can go explore that activity. So that's just me being totally transparent. I love elk hunting, I love mule deer hunting, I love guiding in the mountains, I love all of that, Spencer. But I do love spearfishing. The other thing I will mention, and I've talked about this before on podcasts with folks in the spearfishing world, the culture and feel of spearfishing is a lot different than Western hunting, because there's not as much competition, there's not much of like a competitiveness nature around the resource, at least in the areas that I do a lot of spearfishing in, the Caribbean. I know from what I've been told, Hawaii has a little bit different vibe around this because it's a little bit more of a mature sport there. But the freshwater world here in the States, the Caribbean where I dive, Puerto Rico, surrounding areas, people are incredibly inviting. And it's a very welcoming community. So I like that aspect of it too. Not that Western hunting isn't, but it's for sure a little bit more competitive, a little more pressure around spots and that sort of thing. Alrighty. Guys, biltong, okay? I have been obsessed with this stuff for 3 or 4 years. Ever since I got on a keto, carnivore, paleo-esque type of diet, I've had a hard time finding healthy snacks. Biltong is a great option, particularly the slabs that have this fat on the side. That's where your energy is if you're a fat burner like me. Super simple ingredients in this, guys. Literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ingredients. Pair that to your gas station jerky. A great snack in the backcountry or just day to day. Biltong Depot is a huge supporter of my content. Go to their website, biltongdepot.com. Use my code CliffGray, CLIFFGRAY at checkout for 10% off and to support this content. Thanks, guys. Good stuff here, guys. Great question, Spencer. Ethan asks, best snacks for a 10-mile hunt besides jerky. Back to somebody mentioned this. They were going to give me the box of biltong if they want it. I'm a big biltong fan, and I'm not just trying to shill the Biltong Depot stuff, guys. I'm sure you guys have seen my commercials. I do like the commercial stuff. I like the Biltong Depot stuff, but I've actually been making a ton of it at home, and so I'll give you my spiel on this. I had like 100 pounds of moose roasts and stuff like that in my freezer. I needed to get through. There's another question in there, how long meat lasts. Man, I'll be honest with you. I've eaten frozen game meat that has been frozen, vacuum packed, stayed frozen 2 years later. Like, not just once. I've done that a lot. So that's kind of it's not that unusual for me to eat game meat that's like year and a half, 2 years old. I'm sorry if that sounds weird, but that's whoever asked that question. That's kind of where my limits are on it. But once I get there, year and a half, I like to process it into something that's going to get consumed. So I had a bunch of moose, and I just started defrosting like a roast, around every couple days. I'd slice it up, slap it in vinegar, slap it in a dry rub, hang it in a box with a little fan on it, dry it out as biltong. To me, way easier than jerky. Having said that, the way I have done jerky in the past is I marinate it, then I would smoke it. The process was way longer. I'd leave it in the marinade in the fridge for multiple days and then hang it and dry it. The way I make biltong, I don't do that. You guys can go check out the video I have on my YouTube channel. It shows you exactly how I do it. It just simplifies it because I'm not marinating in any of the meat. I do understand that I could create jerky the same way, guys. I could, instead of hanging it in the box, I could put it in dehydrator, but then I'd have to clean the dehydrator. So I have just found that making homemade biltong is like a very easy process, very passive process for me. So I've been eating a lot of that. Other stuff, Ethan, I eat when I'm not on a like carnivore paleo-esque type of diet, which I'm not on right now. I'm way off the rails because I've been traveling and guiding, and I'm sure I will be for the next couple weeks too. I'm guiding a bit out of a lodge and other places. It's just hard for me to stay on that diet. But when I'm not on that diet, man, I'm a sucker for bobo bars. I eat a lot of smoked oysters and olive oil. I eat a lot of sardines and olive oil as like a snack during the day. I eat a lot of smoked cheese. Those sort of things. On my gear list, if you look at the very bottom of my gear list on my website, I go through a bunch of snacks that I like. So they're all in there. Yeah, awesome, Lyman. So the biltong worked for you too. That's great, dude. Oh, I love that, Eric. 4-year-old tenderloin. Yeah, dude. I don't think it's a problem. I mean, I'm sure it's not as good as it was when it was fresh, but that's a couple years, pretty routine for me to eat frozen game meat from a couple years. But Brian asks, are calf calls the best season-long calling tactic on public land? I think the answer is yes. I mean, if you really want to simplify your calling, and I assume you're just talking about September rut, archery season, or in the few odd places that you can rifle hunt during that period of time. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about, Brian. I think a dependence on or a focus on using calf sounds will help you out a lot. My elk hunting course, you can check it out. I get into this pretty in depth. But if a guy just wants to be simple, simplify his tactics, knowing how to calf call, focus on calf calls, I think gets you the best result for the least amount of risk. I'll touch on that a little bit. Calf calls, so cow calls, the problem with them, and this is going to differ than the story that other folks will tell you out there. I'm not telling you that I'm 100% correct, but it's my theory, and it's a theory based on being around a lot of livestock in my life. Cattle, horses in particular, they are horses and mules. They're very pecking order oriented. I've talked to guys that raise elk for a living. I've spent an enormous amount of time really close quarters with a lot of cow elk, and I see so many similarities between cow elk and horses in the pecking order deal. Like these cows know each other, and I think that we discount that drastically as hunters, and they tend to know where each cow is within the pecking order. Cow elk, if you watch them throughout the year, they fight with each other like probably 10 times as much as bulls do. Bull elk outside of September, they don't fight. They hang around. They live in peaceful. They're like, I mean, you see them in the summer, you'll see 15 bulls laying together. It's like they're in a yoga class or something. They're at total peace. Cow elk beat the shit out of each other and raise hell with each other all year long. Anytime they're in close quarters, they're pawing each other, they're blowing at each other, they do this like weird kind of hiss at each other. They are always fighting with each other, and I believe it's all about that pecking order. So this is a long way of me saying that when you go in with mature cow sounds, I'm not saying that they won't work, but they put a vibe out there amongst the cows. They're like, who is that? Where's she at in our pecking order? Do we need to deal with this situation? And I think in a lot of the time we spend out there as elk hunters, that's not actually what you don't really want to arise that kind of feeling amongst the herd. And at some point I'll do a video on this. I think people discount that whole idea. There's a vibe of the swirl of elk that you end up within when you're archery elk hunting, when you're vocalizing to elk. It's most guys will tell you the easiest time to call in a bull that you found, or get a bull killed within a group of elk in the middle of September, is a lot of times the first day you go in there. All else held equal, right? Assuming you have the same knowledge of how they move, how they're patterned, where they're going to bed, all of that. First day is always the best because you haven't changed the vibe yet. When you get in there and start changing the vibe, you bumped them once, you've cow called a bunch, they're wondering what's going on, the vibe changes and it becomes a lot harder to kill them. I think that has a lot to do with using mature cow sounds, right? And then you could extend that to bull sounds too. They have their own pecking order, obviously, during the hunting season too. So that's my thoughts on it. I think cow sounds, you can go look at my video where I talk about some of the tactics that I use on cow sounds. I've got one on YouTube, and then I go into, calf sounds, and then I go into how I use calf sounds in that class too. You can go check that out. All right, guys, let's see here. Okay. Let me check and see if I've got any more speak pipes. Patrick.
Hi, I'm in Wyoming and am able to get a general tag, which is an earlier season here, and would just be interested in some general advice, good tactics, that type of thing for a general tag in a public area in Wyoming. Thanks.
Yeah, so general advice on that, Patrick, because you're a resident of Wyoming, the reality is from what I've seen, and I'm not a pro at hunting Wyoming by any means, but I've spent some time there. From what I've seen, if you're a resident of Wyoming, you're hunting the rifle seasons, go hunt right into the wilderness areas. Because the reality is, because of that dynamic where non-residents can't hunt the wilderness area, there's so much less pressure in them. And there's a lot of spots where you can get into the wilderness. There's spots where you can day hike into the wilderness, right? Like work on that little buffer area in the wilderness areas. You're gonna have a whole lot less pressure. You uniquely have that as a resident, so you could do that unguided. That's where I would focus. If I was you, and because you can readily, dude, hold on, let me listen to it again. I want to make sure I'm not answering this wrong. I kind of
Hey Cliff, this might be a bit of a noob.
Oh, wrong one. Sorry.
Hi, I'm in Wyoming and am able to get a general tag, which is an earlier season.
Yeah. So, sorry, Patrick. For a second, I thought, is he a non-resident? I'm talking to my ass here. So, as a resident, man, yeah, I mean, you're always going to be able to get the tag. Just start learning an area where you're hunting right into the wilderness area, hunting every year. From what I've seen, get to know the area well. You're not going to have a lot of pressure. You will do very well. If you just base it on that, learning an area right in there, the half mile before the wilderness boundary into the wilderness, a mile and a half, you'll kill elk all day long as a resident, particularly once you know specific areas. That's what I would do. I think elk hunting is your oyster as a Wyoming resident. So I think you can just keep it simple like that. Learn an area real well, and you'll do awesome. Let's see here. Okay, and then I had this is from Eric. This is a Washington elk question.
Hey, Cliff, this might be a bit of a noob question, but if I have found some elk's summer bedding areas, this is in Washington State, roughly 5,000, 6,000 feet, how reliable is that bedding area going to be when we get into the late October as snow starts to fall and weather pressure starts happening?
Yeah, so honestly, Eric, probably in my experience, very limited value, unfortunately. That's the short answer to your question. I in the and I don't know if you said Western Washington or not.
Hey, Cliff, this might be a bit of a noob question, but if I have found some elk's summer bedding areas, this is in Washington State, roughly 5,000, 6,000 feet.
Yeah, so man, if they're mountain elk, they're not on like the coast. This will apply pretty solid. What I have seen is that areas where I found summer elk, particularly summer, where bulls were summering, it was almost universally of zero value in the sense that all it told me is where they weren't going to be in the rut, late fall, and the winter. They almost always transition out of that into other spots. Usually what I would see is bulls will summer in a spot. For us, they tend to rub right around, August 15th, and they'll make a move then. They'll rut. Sometimes they bounce around a bit during the rut, depending on, I think a lot of it has to do just like the whole herd dynamic, the dominant bulls, that sort of thing. They might bounce around quite a bit. They might stay in one area more, particularly if they're like a dominant bull. To me, it seems like they'll stay in one spot where they've got a bunch of cows and they won't be moving around a lot, but there's some variance there. And then after the rut, they go now to some additional spots and they'll hold up in those spots until weather moves them. That's the general pattern that I have seen with them. In my online course, I try to get into that nerd level deep, like the different stages, but that's right there's a big chunk of it what I have seen. So unfortunately, usually it's not all that useful. All righty, let's see here. All right, guys, let's do one more. Yeah, good. And there's one there, Eric, from Brian, right there. So an archery hunter in Central Cascades, but east side, right, they can confirm they move lower by October. So yeah, probably a different spot. Okay, let's. I'm gonna do two more, guys, and then I'll let you guys go. I think my mind's starting to turn into mush. All righty. Oh, these will be fun ones. So Jacob asks, "Oh, guys, I've just on the speak pipes, Lyman, Matthew, Dalton, David. Thanks, guys. I'm not going to get to them. I'm going to answer them in podcasts, just so you know. But I appreciate you guys sending them in. Okay, so let's see here. This question, Jacob says, thoughts on calling elk in areas with heavy wolf presence. Does bugling give you away? So I have a controversial take on this, or maybe a little bit different take on this. I don't think that wolves directly shut down elk vocalizations like people say they do. So this is my take on wolves being in areas that have a lot of wolves, and then also being in areas that don't have any wolves, or historically have had no wolves. Yeah, for sure, Brian. The wolf deal, if you're hunting elk and you get into a drainage, you get into a basin, and there's wolves howling and raising hell, in terms of predators, I think you really have to look at wolves as if you're out there, you're hunting, and you are trying to be careful about hunting. You're trying to keep your presence unknown. You're trying to be sneaky about it. You're trying not to push those elk out. If wolves are in that basin, and wolves will be in one basin, and they'll raise hell and they'll go to another basin. They move around all the time. You got to view that as if like 12 drunk guys that hunt real hard just showed up, because that's kind of what wolves are like when they're in there with you. They raise hell, they chase elk, they hunt hard, and they got no rules. So if you try to stay in there and hunt with them, usually it's not a good choice. For me, that's one of the situations where a lot of active wolf, like a lot of wolf activity right now. I'm not talking about wolf shit that's a week old. I'm talking about howling wolves, seeing elk seeing wolves on the landscape. You know, see a herd of elk, glass a herd of elk, and then all of a sudden a wolf comes by through. Like, wolves are actively hunting those elk. I think a guy should move on. It just is what it is. They raise hell with elk, and elk do shut down in that sense in terms of vocalization. They become much harder to hunt because they know the wolves are there. But I think a lot of what people construe as wolves have, I mean, let's take a lot of Idaho. Guys will say this is about the salmon. They'll say this about the Selway. I've hunted both of them. I've elk hunted both of them. In those areas, elk are not very vocal, and there's a presence of elk. And there's a wolf presence almost all the time running around. If you get into the flat tops, elk don't vocal. Elk, there are no wolves, and elk vocalize about the same in the flat tops versus, say, the salmon. And there's obviously no wolves in the flat tops, or maybe there's a couple trickling through nowadays, and there's a lot of wolves in the salmon. So I don't think it's the wolves that creates that dynamic of very little vocalization in a general sense. I think it is the lack of density of bulls. And I've been told this by guys who raise elk commercially, that the number one variable on vocalizations is the density of bulls in that localized vicinity. So wolves, by nature, if they're there, a lot of times there's a reduced elk population and a dispersed elk population. You have that same dynamic in a lot of parts of Colorado that have exceptional habitat, and the elk are limited by the winter range. So there's exceptional summer, exceptional fall habitat when we're hunting them. And those elk are very dispersed, and therefore we get a heavy reduction in the amount of vocalizations. I think that's what a lot of people are seeing when they say, oh, the wolves made it so all the elk don't vocalize anymore. I think it's more that you have a lot lower density and you have a lot less concentration of these giant swirls of elk that have 15 bulls in the same basin. It just happens less of the time. They're more dispersed, and therefore there's not as much need for them to vocalize, particularly on the bugling side. So anyways, hopefully that answers your question, Jacob. Let's see here. One last question, guys, and then I will let you guys go. David. Oh, yeah, this is a great one to finish on. David asks, thoughts on hunting big game with a 223, particularly the Sierra TMK or the Hornady 73 grain ELDM. All right, so I'm assuming David is probably familiar with the thread on Rockslide, maybe familiar with Form, who talks about this on Rockslide and is a big chunk of this trend. So I'll give a nuanced answer here. So okay, so many hunters using this cartridge, some of which who I have hunted with, some of which who I have done a lot of shooting with, including Form. I would call them highly skilled. I would call them I would call them highly ethical. They're very capable of what they're doing. And there's a thing that these guys are doing that are drifting to these smaller cartridges that I will use. Maybe it's a metaphor or an analogy. They're starting to shoot rifles in the hunting context how archers practice for hunting, meaning that they're shooting a ton, right? So the reason I say that is I think that if you decide to dedicate a lot of time to shooting and being very capable in all sorts of different rests, taking advantage of a lot of different opportunities, being just very good at killing animals in the hunting dynamic, there's going to be a tendency to shift to the smaller cartridges like the 223. And I will say this, you guys I'm sure know this, but a lot of places you can't legally shoot 223 on big game animals, including Colorado. But there's a lot of other states too. I think that sort of law is ridiculous. It makes no sense to me. There's people with gigantic cartridges shooting at unethical distances all the time. This is like it doesn't make any sense to me to limit the caliber size. Just from a practical fairness standpoint. But there's if guys want to shoot a lot, they do shoot a lot, and they dedicate a huge part of their life to really perfecting that. I'm not talking about like your average hunter who shoots once or twice a year and then goes out and limits himself to 200 yards on elk. That's different. I'm talking about a different guy, a guy who wants to shoot a lot. A lot of these guys are drifting to very small cartridges that are fun to shoot, cheap to shoot. And the other thing is that the more practice they get doesn't make them worse shots. And I think that's an important thing to discuss here, because if you're shooting a lot, I think it's a very hard argument to say that if you're shooting a 300 Win Mag a ton, that unless it's a very heavy rifle, a low recoiling rifle, one, that it's fun, and two, that it's not actually creating a hidden flinch, a hidden just reaction that you can't control as a human that is actually making you less accurate, right? So that is why you see a lot of these guys that shoot a lot migrating to these smaller cartridges. Now, I dive into that because there's a lot of bias here. For better or worse, a lot of these guys that are shooting these small cartridges shoot a lot, take it serious, and because of that, they're highly, highly proficient individuals. Like the whole shot placement thing, they're really good at that. And they're really good at it in a ton of different scenarios. And then they have this correlating aspect that they stay good at it, they stay sharp because the shooting's fun and the recoil's low. So they get a lot of practice, consciously. I guess there's this conscious development because they're getting to rep everything so many different times. But unconsciously, they're not destroying their marksmanship by a recoil beating the shit out of them. So that individual tends to do very well with a small cartridge across big game, including the bullets and the 223 that David mentions. Now, I have to dwell on that and make that distinction because if you take the reality of a lot of hunters, the guy who shoots less than a box of shells a year maybe only shoots 5 rounds a year just to make sure his zero's still good. If you really think about it, if all else is held equal, I would rather have that individual shoot a larger cartridge, a larger caliber bullet, because all else being held equal, that larger bullet is going to end up being end up putting in a bigger wound channel, right? And so that's where I think there's a distinction we have to make. I don't think anybody wants to admit that they're the guy who only shoots 5 rounds a year, but it is the case that that's a huge proportion of hunters. Like I would say it's way above 50% of rifle hunters are shooting 5, 10, 15 rounds a year with their hunting rifle. If you're in that category, I do think there's an argument to say like maybe a little bit bigger cartridge is better. Now, having said that, I could probably talk about this for hours. There's little nuances. Personally, I've been shooting more and more small cartridges like the 223, David. I'm for sure moving into having a training rifle, having a hunting rifle. And the reality is like I will probably start hunting more and more with essentially my training rifle. And in my mind, that gets everything cranking in my mind, like, well, maybe I should just hunt with a 6mm. Maybe I should just hunt with a 6.5 Creedmoor, right? And not shoot a 7 PRC, So I think there's a valid argument there too, because again, it's like you can keep all the familiarity doing that. So anyways, I guess maybe not a real clear answer. I think it's a very interesting discussion. I think there's a lot of different ways to look at it. I think one of what I'm getting at, though, there's like a little bit of an unfortunate nature, or not unfortunate. I just think that like there's a little bit lost in the thought process that if you're going to go that way, I think to really get the value of the smaller cartridge, and those those type of bullets that you're talking about, it really pays off for the guys that shoot a ton. For the guys that don't shoot a lot, shoot very little, and so little that they're still getting surprise shots, it's actually better technically for them to be shooting the larger cartridges, the larger calibers, because they don't actually see the downside, right? I'm not saying that's a good thing. It's a horrible thing that people practice that little, but it's the reality of what we're talking about. So anyways, I'll get Form on. I'm gonna get Form on our podcast. I'll talk him into it, and we'll dive really deep into this. It's a super interesting topic, and I think there's some facts that are pretty damn hard to debate about, how recoil affects us and those sort of things, and in our ability to practice with large cartridges and that sort of stuff. So anyways, guys, I'm going to let you go. I appreciate everybody that stayed on. I did my best to answer as many questions. I appreciate all the positivity and all the questions, all the folks answering and adding their takes into the chat. I also appreciate that. Thanks, guys. Congrats, Cody. I'll reach out to you. If Cody doesn't respond, I think he's got 2 weeks after I let him know, I'll announce another winner. So anyways, guys, thanks a lot for watching. Thanks, Leo. If you enjoyed this content, do me a huge favor. Subscribe on whatever platform you consume it on. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, whatever works for you guys. Everything else is on my website, pursuitwithcliff.com. Go there and it's going to be very apparent to you that I work my ass off just to not have a real job. All the hunts I guide, all the seminars I put on, all the unique experiences I offer, and the membership site, all the details are there.